Hi, my name is Tim Kellers. I'm the instructor for both the iOS design and the Android developer programs here at NJIT. Um, and we're having a little information session this afternoon to feature some of the things that we do in that class, and to showcase maybe a little bit of what this type of online instruction is all about. These classes that we have, one is iPhone, and one is on iPhone developer, which is also iOS, the iPhone operating system, and the other is the Android developer class. One teaches the development of applications for the Apple line of products for iPhone, iPad, the later generations of iPod Touch. The other class teaches Android development, which is more software specific than hardware specific, because Android is not tied to a hardware manufacturer. Apple makes their own hardware, makes their software development kit, and pretty much curates all the software that's going into their devices. Android is an operating system which is publicly available. It's open source, largely open source, designed by Google, and it can be put on any manufacturer's hardware that's compatible with the operating system. So where Apple is tailored specifically to their hardware, the Android can go on anything. It can go on anything from a smartphone, go on a tablet, it can go on various manufacturers of tablet, it can go on Motorola devices, it can go on HTC devices, Nokia devices. So it's a much bigger target than the Apple line of products. Both these classes are online classes, and the online classes mean that there isn't any physical classroom to attend. Now, we do offer at NJIT the opportunity for students in the area, if they need to use computer equipment to test some of the things they're working on, or to do some of the tasks and assignments in the class. We do have a computer lab where students can come and work. But for the independent worker at home with your own hardware, you can fully take this class and never set foot on the NJIT campus unless you want to. So you don't need to be within the relative proximity of Newark, New Jersey to take these classes. You can take these classes from anywhere. So the material is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And each of the classes, we do feature from week 5 through week 8 live chat areas, which is something like we're doing now. We use a multimedia environment where chat can go two-way, and we can actually talk about maybe some of the problems students may be having with some of the material, maybe some of the opportunities that are coming up for students, and discuss the different aspects of the different code bases. In each of the class, the instructional periods last 8 weeks, and it's about 30 hours of instruction over those 8 weeks. The 30 hours should probably, if you're going to take a class that's 30 hours, you should be able to spend 90 hours over that period of time. It's about a 3-to-1 ratio of time spent in a class versus time practicing outside the class and actually getting familiar with or mastering the material in the class itself. At the end of the 8-week period in both classes, what becomes due is the final project for each class. And each final project in each class is the actual design of an app for that specific operating system. So you, in the iOS class, people would work on designing an app for an iOS device, iPad, iPhone, iPod Touch. And in the Android class, people design an app for working in the Android operating system. And they can target whatever piece of hardware they want. Android code for a tablet computer is a little bit different than the code for a smartphone on it, but you can actually tailor your code for either one. You can also produce universal code which will run on either device. It'll recognize the features of a phone versus some of the features of a tablet. And anymore, those features are largely just the ability to have a cellular modem inside the phone, and there are tablets out there that have cell modems in them now anyway, and have for quite a while. Even on the Apple side, the iPads have had as an option the ability to have a cell phone or a cellular modem to connect to the outside world. So the code that you write can be as universal as a piece of software which will work on almost all devices, or all devices, and can be the target, where you can have things that are specific to certain types of devices and even certain brands. The design in both classes happens on the desktop. For the Apple class, the iOS class, a Mac is required because Apple's software development kit and some of their other utilities only run on a Macintosh platform. For Android, development is done in a software environment called the Android Software Development Kit, or the Android SDK, which is in this class, and it's not exclusively for Android, but in this class and in most commercial environments or enterprise environments, the development is done inside of a piece of software called Eclipse, which is an open source software which can be downloaded. The Android Software Development Kit interfaces with the Eclipse development environment. There are specific plugins to work with Android. One's called the ADT plugin, which allows you to develop software specifically for the Android devices. Android is it's kind of it's a wide field. The Android software development kits cover versions going as far back as version 1.5, which is probably 4.5 or 5 years ago, all the way up to the newest versions, which are called Jelly Bean, which is 4.1 on it. And you develop your software in the Eclipse environment, and then you actually test it in the simulator, or in Android it's called the emulator. In the iPhone it's actually called the simulator, which is an actually simulated piece of hardware to make sure that your code actually does perform the way it's supposed to. There's still, when you're done with getting the code right in an emulator or a simulator, you still have to put it on a device to make sure that it does do what you intended it to do on it. In the Android world, in the Android development, you can, by plugging in your device and making your device accessible to the software program, it's usually a debug mode which is turned on, you can actually deploy the app that you write onto your device for testing. In the Apple world, Apple doesn't allow any software on devices unless it comes through the App Store for commercial devices or even for development. But, and it's a fairly large but, if one is a member of developer.apple.com, which is the developer portal, you have the ability to actually create lists of people and devices and software to install on your device, which will allow you to install your own apps and compiled code onto your device itself, which is very helpful for Apple. In the Apple class, included in with the class itself, is a membership in this Apple Developer Portal, and the Apple Developer Portal gives all the students who are registered access to all of Apple's release material, the same as all the rest of the developers get. So you get commercial grade release material software to use. You are also supplied with Apple's complete reference library, which gives you code references, like for the underlying language, which is Objective-C, tutorials on how to use that type of code, sample code, and access to the actual developer forums where developers get together and discuss issues they may be having with the operating system or things that they're trying to do, and figuring out ways to implement new features. In the Android world, that's available too. It's more of an open forum, and it's part of Android Developer, which you don't have to pay for that. It's completely open sourced. Apple, if you're not a member of the class, it runs between $99 and up to $400 a year, depending upon what level of development you want to be at. Which means if you want to be a single developer, it's $99 a year. If you want to actually be in a group of developers that form part of Apple's enterprise, where you can actually deploy your own software on it, it runs up to about $400 a year to be able to enter that type of environment. The Android environment, once you have your software ready to go on it, you can actually submit it to the Android market, Google market, and actually offer it for free or for sale, and begin making money or begin becoming known as a developer that may be able to develop some worthwhile applications. and get your name out there and be able to actually have some commercial success. In the Apple world, in order to develop commercially, you have to have one of those commercial certificates. The membership you get in this class allows you access to all these materials, but it does not allow you to actually deploy commercial software for sale in the App Store. Apple's view on that is that the classes are strictly for educational purposes, and once you've learned your craft and learned enough about it, become a commercial developer, then you can actually join that group of commercial developers by paying the annual fee and becoming a commercial developer. Apple will pay about 70% back to you of every app that is sold, which means basically that if you're selling a 99-cent app, you get to keep 70 cents, and Apple keeps about 29 cents of every instance or every piece of software we download that your software gets. You can put them up for free. You can put them up for a lot more than 99 cents too. There's a lot more out there that have higher prices too. But Apple has it's a very regulated, but a very well-regulated path from developer to revenue. In the Android world, it's a little bit more wide open than that. And what's happened is in the Android world, since there is a variety of ways of getting apps, a variety of ways of deploying apps, and until recently there hasn't been a centralized way of vetting the quality of apps, or even sometimes whether or not apps do what they say they're going to do. So the net result of that is it's a little harder to monetize your effort in the Android environment than in Apple. If you become an Apple developer, you know that whatever you produce and put out there, if people are going to buy it, you have a revenue stream. The Android developer, when you put it out there are various places people can look for apps. Some apps are extremely good. Some apps can be just not only not very good, but they can actually be somewhat harmful to your hardware, depending upon if they're not done correctly. Apple vets all that, and now there is some in the Google world and the Android world, there is some vetting of software to make sure that people aren't producing code that's dangerous or toxic. The Android market, Google market, do accept submissions from pretty much anyone once you're registered with them. And so does the Apple, but Apple, you have to be a commercial developer. Now, these classes, each of the classes, the fees for the class is $1,050 for both classes. It includes it in the Apple membership, and for the Android class, it includes all the software. You have access to the software for a year from the time that the class runs. The way that each class works is at the end of the 8-week period of the class, the instructional period of the class, you have up to another 8 weeks to submit that final project app. And that final project app will determine whether or not you are actually awarded the certificate in the class itself. The certificate for the class is an NJIT certificate. It actually becomes a part of your student record here at NJIT. The award is CEUs, which are continuing education units. Each of the class awards 3. Continuing education units aren't quite like credits in a credit-bearing institution. A lot of professional organizations and professional jobs that are out there require retraining every so often, and a certain number of continuing education units have to be compiled over a certain number of years. Sometimes for public school teachers, you need 100 CEUs over a 5-year period. Both of these classes do carry that CEU award, 3 for each. But what these classes are about training and learning and either upgrading older skills into new skills where you can, if you're a programmer and you want to learn how to do stuff in a new environment, or if you want to, if you're not a programmer and you want to find out how all this stuff works. And these classes are designed to be entry-level classes or introductory classes, so we don't require that there is a programming background. We don't require any type of computer classes as a requisite for either class. We will teach you what you need to know to get to these classes. At the end of the class, you'll have the tools to go further yourself, to be able to actually spend time, uh, spend time, pardon me, you'll be able to spend time honing your skills. And once you have honed those skills and you have them to a level where you can actually develop more complex applications, you can actually be by that time in a field where you can be in a commercial development field. And that holds true for either of the classes. Well, the classes will teach you what you need to know to go further. They're good starting points. There will be some, in the future there are planned to be some more advanced topics like complete Objective-C language. That won't be for a few months, but that's the type of thing that the iOS is based on a language, and the language that's based on the computer language, if you will, is called Objective-C. We don't require people to know Objective-C coming into this class. There is the opportunity in this class to learn Objective-C, the amount that you need to know to get through this class, through class materials and through materials in the Apple Developer Portal on it. The reality is, to go beyond that, you have to become a lot better at it, and that requires practice. And you still will have the resources, tutorials, and tools from the Apple side for a year beyond this class. So you should be able to keep up with the latest developments, because the developer portals are changing all the time. Even the Android developer portal is the same thing. Even though there's no fee for joining that, as soon as information is released and updated, it's in the portal, so it's important to review stuff all the time. So at the end of the class, either class, you successfully submit your app and you get your certificate from NJIT, and you go to apply for a job, or maybe during the class you go to apply for a job. The things you can expect are that you will probably be put as part of a team of more senior people to do app design. The older model, or the old example of the one guy working in the dark by himself on an app and coming up with the outrageous app and making $250,000 or $1 million off his app. Those are anecdotal, and they're a little apocryphal. They don't really happen that much anymore. What happens now is, for both iOS and Android, the developers join teams, and the teams usually consist of someone who knows code very well, a coder, someone who does graphical design very well, and a person who does UX, which is the user experience. We take the skills of the programmer to write the code, combine that with the graphic artist to make things look nice, and then the user interface expert makes sure that what's put together makes sense and can be used by people who are looking to use the app itself. And that goes with both Apple and the Android, with that user experience, the requirement for user experience. Any questions so far?
Do you want me to ask questions verbally, or do you want me to type them out for you? Just for you? I have the list of all the questions from previous Hangouts in the shared Hangout notes. If you go to the Google Drive.
Okay. Yeah. Type them in, and then I'll do it, because then I can actually clip some of this.
All right. Perfect. I'll type them in one by one.
Great. Okay. One question I've gotten is how many students make up a class. We limit the classes to 10 students. If we get more than 10 students, significantly more than 10 students, we will spawn a second section of the class. But in the online environment, you don't want too few students to, so that you have a lack of discussion in the student. In an online class, it's important to have interactivity and discussion between students. You don't want to have so many students that people get lost, because the instructor in a class like this, and I'm the instructor, is more like a guide through the software, through the material, and we don't want people getting lost along the way. So typically, if a class has 10 people, it can be enrolled sometimes up to about 12 before we spawn another section, because if we spawn another section, we want to have 4 people or more in it, so there is some discussion. So the limitations are there really so that it's a useful learning experience that everyone has, and they're in place so that we can actually, if we do have enough students, to have alternate or secondary sections where people can actually use the same material and have a certain amount of discussion. What we do in these classes, though, is when we have our group chats, is we invite everyone into them. So if you're in a class that has 10 people and someone else is in a class that has 5 people on it, what happens is in the group areas, all 15 will get to take part and participate in those areas. And those live chats are typically for the Android class. They're from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesdays from week 5 through week 8 in the class. And in the iOS sections, they're from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursdays throughout the class. We find that those conferences are particularly well attended, and they're really important for people in the latter parts of the class while they're beginning their design, trying to overcome certain obstacles or implement certain features. I've been asked if the class is fully online, and it is fully online. There is no need to come to class. There is no need to come to campus. You should certainly approach it and treat it as if you're attending class, because you want to make sure that you stay on top of the material and don't get behind. All the same things that apply to a normal class about staying with the material also apply to the online classes. You don't need to come to the campus unless, for the iOS class, if you have a problem that's related to code and you're not sure whether or not it's a problem with hardware or software, the Mac Lab here at NGIT is available to you. It's usually here available on Fridays. It may be Wednesdays and Fridays this semester too. Same thing with Android. If you're having a problem that needs to be resolved, you need alternate hardware, or you need to talk to me, you can come to campus for that. But other than that, there isn't any need. If you don't have trouble with the hardware, and if your studying goes smoothly enough where you can work out things, at your home or at your work or where you're working, with the support from the class itself, and there is no need to actually come to class, to come to campus. Class we like to see attended, even if it's virtually and online. Coming to campus, not quite so important. Okay. Is it Rahul? Glad to see you. You have a MacBook at home. Is it a MacBook Pro or just a MacBook? MacBook Pro. And it will probably be all right. About how old is it? Oh, okay. Rahul's a recently bought MacBook Pro. That should be fine. If it's recently bought, currently is running either Lion or Mountain Lion, and that's really what's required. The newer versions of the Apple software no longer support Snow Leopard on it. Snow Leopard's not supported up to the Xcode version of 4. And right now we're about 4.5 point something, 4.52 or 4.53. One of those is a beta version I'm not supposed to talk about, but sometimes I forget which version I'm using, the beta or not. I use both Lion and Mountain Lion, 10.7 and 10.8, and don't really have any problem. Typically, Apple supports their operating systems in a development environment for about 18 months. So you can expect that if you've got Lion or Mountain, Lion will take you through this class. Mountain Lion will probably take you through this class and through the next year. As Apple updates their code, sometimes they require more resources, whether it's a newer Mac or not. But usually, that doesn't happen quickly, or it doesn't happen overnight with Macintosh. One thing you may find is if you're using an older device, sometimes the newest operating systems and newest software doesn't work on the new devices. For example, iOS 6 right now that will not install on the original iPad. And I have two original iPads, so even though I have an iPhone and I have iOS 6 on, there is a limit to the amount of hardware support that Apple actually does. But you can be pretty confident with a recently bought MacBook that you'll be good for quite a while. Do you have a device also? Do you have a some sort of iOS device that you can actually use in the class too? All right. Earl says he has an iPad to an iPhone 5. You're fine. You're golden as far as the as the software, your hardware goes. You also ask, is there any extra software installation before starting the class? Before starting the class, no. If you've probably got Lion or Mountain Lion, and that's fine. You can, on your own or through the class, download the latest Xcode, which is the development environment, Apple's IDE, where we do the environment development, and the software developer kit too. But I believe you have to be a member of the of Apple's portal to get the software development kit. But included with this class, you get to be a member of, it's a student membership in developer.apple.com, which will give you access to all of the latest, the release versions, no beta, but the release versions of the software development kit, the release versions of Xcode, so that you'll be able to do that type of development. So before the class, what you need is proper hardware with the proper operating system. During the class, you can actually download what you need. And we also have some utilities that are not offered by Apple in the class, in the courseware itself, that we download during the class itself. Does that answer your question all right? Has one question from registration. Morello says he's unable to register for the class online. Is it a problem with the actual registration, or is there some other thing preventing you from? Is it with the registration system, or is there some other issue preventing you from registering online? I do not see the link for the January class. Okay. Is that in the actual, when you go to actually apply in the NGIT application process? Because there's a pull-down window in there where you have to select the continuing professional education, the non-credit area. All right, I can give you the email address, the contact information for someone who can help you here. It's Brian Penzak, who takes care of our professional development and non-credit registration, and also takes care of our graduate certificates and credit master's program registrations here for continuing education at NGIT. He's also monitoring our IRC room, so he'll probably see this message. If you can, send him an email. You might want to send him an email now, and that way when we straighten it out and you get into the get registration straightened out for you. Late for registration? No, you're not late yet. Registration is available up through Tuesday. We do have the Monday holiday here at NGIT where if you run into problems with registration, there really won't be anyone around to help you. So contacting Ryan, getting the registration straightened out as sooner is probably better than later. We also don't want the class to fill up on you where and not have any room. There is room in the class right now, but these classes tend to get registered for late, meaning that usually today, tomorrow, and over this weekend, we'll get a lot of registrants in the class itself. So in order to ensure that you've got a spot in the class, try to get it rectified as quickly as you can. The schedule for the class. All right, the class begins January 23rd, next Wednesday. It's an online class, so it begins, but what we do is or what I do is I reveal or make available the first week of material at 1 p.m. Eastern Time next Wednesday. And each week's material is released in those modules, so you don't see the week 2 material until week 2. And 3, 4, and so on, in both the iOS and the Android classes. They're both done the same way. Of course, once the material has been released, it stays there, which means that if you go to week 2, week 3, week 4, you can see all the previous weeks, and you have that available to you for up to a year, even though these classes, the instructional periods only run 8 weeks, and the other periods run an extra 8 weeks. So there should be the ability to get registered, and the schedule, since it's online, the material is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, another question. Okay. Raul's going to follow up with the email address. Good. Let me know how you make out. I'm going to put my email address right into the chat window here. If you can contact me and let me know how you make out with that. All right? That's me right there. The other question that I got was, anybody take this class, or do you need programming knowledge? And is there preparation you recommend before the class starts? Programming knowledge, no. Programming aptitude, yeah. And that doesn't presuppose that you've taken any computer science courses or have any programming courses before. What you need is the aptitude to be able to learn that. Now, if you've taken programming classes before and you've been successful with it, chances are that learning the new language and the new design of Objective-C and the new design of Xcode would probably be easier for you because you've demonstrated the ability to learn that. But having learned that information beforehand does not necessarily make it easier to master the new information. So we don't require any prior programming languages or even programming experience, because we teach that as we go through the class, through the Apple Developer Portal and the materials available there, and the reference materials available there, and the materials also available right inside the class container itself that we supply during the week's lesson. And the second part of the question was if there's any preparation that I recommend before class starts. And I say the only preparation that I would recommend people do is when you get into your into the class mode, be ready to actually go to work in the class, which means hopefully you've mastered your computer skills. I don't recommend that anyone go out and buy a Mac and then take this class right away if you don't have Mac experience. You need to use the computer as a tool to learn a new skill, so you have to be good with the computer itself. And it's the same thing with the Android environment too, even though the Android environment is not limited to just Macintosh. It will run on Windows, it'll run on Linux, it'll run on BSD Unix, it'll run on several different platforms, but it's more important that the preparation for learning this new skill is mastery of the tool that you're going to be using to learn that new skill, and that tool is actually your means of access, your personal computer, your desktop, whatever you're going to be using to access the materials. You need to be on top of that. You don't want troubles with the access method. You don't want computer problems to get in the way of actually learning the material. Yeah, another good question pops up. I'm asked, why should someone spend money, even though they say invest, but spend money in this class when I can find it online or study it myself for free? Well, the reality is, with the that's true. The availability of the information online is true for the Android, certainly, where you can actually find the information online. You can find a wealth of information. You can find so much information online that you can drown in it. It's a little less true for the Apple world, because since Apple is proprietary function, there's not quite as much available online, but there's a lot of that out there too. What we offer is a vetted course that meets NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology standards, awards a New Jersey Institute of Technology certification at the end of the class, and is a guided approach to learning this new skill, meaning that it's instructor-led by me, and each of the learning modules, each of the week's assignments are crafted in such a way that one builds on the next. There is a logical flow to it. For Android and for a lot of the Apple stuff, you could probably find that same type of information out on the internet and actually construct your own learning container, but it's going to take quite a bit of time to do it. And time is one of those things which is more important sometimes than often than the actual cost of a class. So having something presented to you in a fashion that you can have confidence in, that you can begin the class, work through it, and actually learn a new skill by the end in a certain given length of time, which the total time is about 16 weeks, up to 16 weeks, 8 weeks of class, and then you have up to 8 weeks to actually finish the final project. Doesn't mean you have to take the additional 8 weeks, but that's available to you. But to learn that amount, to teach yourself that amount in that period of time is difficult unless you have nothing else to do except learn that new skill. It'd be very hard to hold down a job and do that because it takes so much time. And since I've written these classes, I've been all over the internet doing just that, just finding what resources are out there, writing resources of my own, and putting them in a format that is a structured learning environment. So there is value to be had in that structured learning environment. You know what you can expect at the beginning of the class. You know what you can expect to receive, what the outcome by the end of the class is likely to be, as long as you work at it. I'm not going to, for a moment, tell anyone that these classes are easy. They are not. They're not designed to be easy. They're designed to be to teach a new skill, and sometimes that learning process is not terribly easy. But that doesn't. But it's certainly not impossible. And the dedicated student will get everything out of this class that they need to get. So if you want a class like that, it's easier to, I don't know, easier, but it's probably more advantageous to enter a program that is structured, that has expected outcomes, and also you have supporting documentation at the end that you've actually accomplished something. You have the apps that you've created plus the certificate from NJIT. That is probably the better outcome than trying to learn it all on your own, unless you have unlimited time and can do that. It can be done, but it's more difficult than taking this class by a long shot. Earl, do you have any questions about the class itself? Okay, Earl doesn't have any questions, but we have another question here. It says, can you tell us how online learning works at NJIT? Well, online learning is done in NJIT through a learning management system called Moodle. And Moodle, M-O-O-D-L-E, stands for the Modular Object-Oriented Distance Learning Environment. And it is a program, an online program, all written in PHP, that supports learning materials and the entire learning environment. You can read resources inside the learning, the LMS of Moodle. You can take tests in there. You can submit assignments. You can work on word processing documents. You can design code. You can actually you can do HTML. It supports the entire learning environment, and that's what we use as the container to host these classes. It also supports chat functions, and it supports some video functions too through a third-party, through several third-party applications. One that's used here is called Big Blue Button, which is a multimedia environment. But we also have other ways of providing content and multimedia content, but it's all done through Moodle itself. Once you're signed up for a class, you create an account. It's your own account. It's your username, your password. It's only yours. Nobody else knows the password. The instructor will know your username because of grading and the way the gradebook functions. Your online login allows you to enroll in a class, and once you've created your login, I enroll you into a class section. When you go to the website, you'll see whatever classes you're enrolled in are listed. You can click on those, and it'll come up. It always puts you back the last place you started in the class. Of course, if you haven't entered before, you start at the beginning. And it actually lists the assignments that are there, the discussions that may be going on in the forums. It lists unread messages in the forum you may have. There's an internal messaging system where you can actually ask questions internally inside of Moodle without posting to the forum. Although we do promote that people, encourage people to actually use the forums, because the individual messaging goes from person to person. The forums actually are posting that anybody in the class can see. And most of the time, individual messages and email, especially at the beginning of a class, that I will get directly from someone. And I'm happy to answer those, but what will happen is it'll be a question that a lot of people in the class have. So what we'll do is we'll take those questions and hopefully be able to post them in the forum so that everyone has the experience of knowing that they're not the only one with a question, and to have a group answer so that people can solve some of the problems. And along the way, in the beginning, the problems are usually stumbling blocks because of unfamiliarity with the material and sometimes with the environment. So if we can handle those in a group session so that everybody gets the benefit of that knowledge, it's better for the entire learning experience for the class. In the rest of the online experience at NJIT, when you do your assignments and your final project apps, you submit them right through Moodle. I get them, and I can check them out, test them, and grade them. If you have a question, you post in the forum. I'm notified that there's a post there. The standard at NJIT for online learning is if you ask a question, the instructor is supposed to respond within 24 hours. The reality is in these programs that if you post a question in one of the forums, unless you do it at 1 o'clock in the morning or something and I'm already in bed, you're going to get an answer even faster than that, within several hours, if not almost right away. One of the benefits of an online class, which is not always immediately obvious, is if you take an undergraduate college class, you're going to be taking a class that meets once a week, or maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so that if you have questions that need to be asked to the professor or the instructor, so you may have to wait until either the next class session or until the professor has office hours to actually approach them and ask them specific questions. In the online environment, even though you don't have direct contact with the professor, direct physical contact with the professor, the ability to post something in a forum that your instructor is notified of immediately happens right away. So you can actually get quicker responses to information in an online environment than you can in a face-to-face class. Okay, I think that answered that question. Let's see, we have another question coming, I think. Okay, we have a new joinee here. Debbie, do you have any questions about the class? I'm happy to tell you anything I can. Okay. Do you have an interest in either the iOS or the Android class? Oh, okay. All right. Debbie says she's already an NJIT online student, so you're familiar with the online process and you're familiar with Moodle already. I believe the main campus at NJIT is using Moodle 1.9 still. They might have moved up to Moodle 2. We use Moodle, the version is 2.4.1. It's the same as the version that used at NJIT, except it has some, it supports other features. It's sort of an expanded set of the Moodle that's used at NJIT, which is hosted by a company called Moodle Rooms. We have our own standalone server here that we deploy the classes on. And Debbie, you've used Moodle 1 and Moodle 2, okay? Moodle 1.9 and Moodle 2. All right, so you'd be perfectly familiar with the online environment. The iOS class, which became in the Android class, became modeled on the iOS class. It was originally a senior project class that was taught. It was 4 years ago. It was January 2009. I taught it at over in Cullimore building here at NJIT. And the structure of that class, of course, it's been updated a lot in 4 years, but the structure of that class became the structure of the class for the Android class too. So it should look pretty familiar. Those classes should look pretty familiar to you in having taken those classes before. Where can I find the syllabus? Glad you asked. I have it. I have it on. I'm going to put it up on a screen share so that the people who are seeing the recording of the class on it will be able to see it also. Just bear with me a minute while I get it for you. Okay, here we have the, it's called the iOS class topics. This is also available online. If you can see the URL up here at the top. One thing about the class topics, which is right at the top, which is inaccurate immediately because the new one just came out. We have, for the materials that are used in the class, this one says the beginning iPhone 3 development, exploring the iPhone SDK. Okay, I just received yesterday the shipment for beginning iOS 6 development. The book is so new that it actually has a 2013 copyright, and we'll be using that book. We have another book on iOS and databases that we use selections from. You're not required to buy the iOS database book. You can, if you want to go and incorporate databases in your applications. What we have here, we actually have the actual steps that we use during the class and each of the different weeks that we use. I also have this where I can share it in a PDF so you can download it also. I just wanted to go through this so that people who are watching the YouTube video can actually see it here. You see we have week 1 and the subjects that are covered in week 1. Week 2, we actually cover some dash code. Week 3, TCP/IP assignments, some articles, provisioning. Every programming class has its Hello World assignment. We actually use the Hello World assignment that we developed and actually install it on our devices. So we have some videos, although the videos that we used to use in the class are now legacy videos because they cover Xcode 3. They're available for reference, but we have other materials which take place of the actual videos themselves. On through week 4. Week 5, and you'll see in week 5 here there is the week 5 chats and the week 5 forum. In week 5 is when we begin the actual live chats that for iOS happen 8:30 to 9:30 Wednesday evenings, 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday evenings from week 5 through week 8. And it goes right on through until we get all the way to week 8. And at the end of week 8, we have the final app answers, questions, discussions, and answers. Now, that in the week 8, that actually you're extended an additional 8 weeks if you needed to actually finish writing your app on it. So even though you would submit your app at the end of the 8th week in the Moodle lesson plan, you would have up to an additional 8 weeks to actually complete the assignment. A lot of the actual work on the apps are done post the instructional period of the class, because when people are learning the examples through the first 8 weeks and practicing the coding techniques. When they actually begin to deploy something, it happens beyond that 8-week period. In that 8-week period, any discussions it will still go on in the forum. I'm still available through it. There's no more material released each week, but the group working on these projects, and it's okay to work on projects in groups too, in both the iOS and the Android classes, and that can go on, I said, up to 16 weeks, which is 8 weeks beyond the end of the class itself. Okay, I'm going to turn the screen share off, and then I'll share that document if anybody wants to download it. I only have Windows PCs. Is that an issue? Debbie asks. The short answer is yes. The Apple Software Development Kit for the Apple products only runs on a Mac. You need a Mac, and you need some sort of Apple device in order to deploy your apps on. It doesn't impact Android development. Android is much more platform agnostic. Android will run on a Mac, will run on a PC, will run on a Linux box, will run on a BSD box. The development environment is a lot more liberal, a lot more readily available, and it's less of a walled garden than the Apple products. Debbie says thanks. She was looking for an excuse to buy a Mac. Okay, there we go. There we go. That's a reason that makes me very happy. I'll tell you that right now. Although I would, like I said, I might have said before you entered the discussion, that it's best if you can master the device, the learning tool, the computer, before you try and take a class through it. Do you have any Mac experience, or are you a Mac user of any on any other platforms? So you've used them, not extensively, but you've used them. What you need to be to do this class is you need a good working knowledge of Mac, and it's not like it's terribly difficult. But if you people who are in exclusively PC world, while the Mac isn't that difficult, it's extremely different. So, and sometimes that difference can cause some problems. But depending upon um, what level of experience you've got with it, you might be fine. What we're talking about is the ability to install software. When Apple does the installs, the Apple resources have a certain way of deploying themselves across menu bars. Stuff is in different places. You notice in Apple, the About menu is underneath the application name. When most Windows applications, it's down at the end under the Help screen. There are some Apple-isms that are different than PC-isms. They're not major, but if you're trying to learn a new skill, sometimes small things can trip you up. But if you're a student here at NJIT and you've used a Mac, you'd probably be okay. Well, are you trying to ask a question? I see you begin to type, but I didn't see a question or text come through. Any link for understanding the Mac before the class? Um, Off the top of my head, I have to tell you no, but I'll tell you what, send me an email, and there are resources that are out there that are available for doing that, and there's some pretty good ones. So if you can send me an email, I'll let you know what we've got. Good at Windows, but a beginner for Mac. Well, you know, even though a lot of the Apple people think we're all born with the ability to use a Macintosh, none of us were. So there are resources that you can learn uh, Mac uh, Mac operating system. Do you have background in development or programming? Okay. Well, if you got a background in development or programming, the switching from one platform to another shouldn't be all that difficult. People who don't have a background in development or have exclusively used one platform for a long time without any particular expanded IT knowledge sometimes can have a problem. But people who are used to dealing at the code level and with differences between languages, I don't think you'll have too much of a problem. And, okay, okay, Linux and Unix. Okay, well, you know that underneath Apple's GUI, their userland materials are all FreeBSD. So if you know Unix, you could open up a terminal window on a Macintosh and go right to town in a Unix shell environment. Debbie likes FreeBSD's logo. Yeah, it's pretty good. Another good question. Where can I find the registration link? Okay. Let me, I could tell you, but it's pretty easy to forget. I'll type it in here and I'll I'll tell it so that the people watching the video can see it too. Or better yet, I'll go to the site and paste it in to make sure that I don't typo it and cause a problem for everyone, including me. Okay, there's the link right at the bottom of that page. There's a link that says register for an online session. What was today on the right-hand side. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's a register here, which takes you to a 3-step process to actually get registered for the class. The question was asked, if I would be the instructor. Yeah, I'm the instructor. I'm the I wrote the class and I instructed. So if you take the class, you get to deal with me for 8 to 16 weeks. Hopefully it's not as bad as it sounds. Okay, we're approaching the end of our time here. Does anybody have any other questions here? Okay, I think Raul's going to be leaving. Good. I hope to get a chance to see you in class, Raul. And Debbie has a question. Go ahead. Okay, here's the question. It's a very good question, too. Debbie asks, she has a friend who is not an NJIT student, but has mentioned interest in these courses. Can non-students just sign up? Yes, the answer is yes. You don't have to be admitted into NJIT to take these classes. There's an application process that you go to register for the class, but that application process is just a way of entering your information into Banner so that we have a permanent record, so that once you take the class, we know you've taken the class. If you're awarded continuing education units or certification, it's recorded right inside of Banner. You don't have to be accepted into the program. So anyone who can essentially meet the criteria for the class, and the criteria for the class is just the ability to try and learn online and to have some experience with a computer so that you can use the computer to actually learn the class material. So you don't have to be an NJIT student. You do have to be willing to put the time and effort in these classes, because even though these are not credit-bearing classes and are professional development classes, these classes come from, for senior project classes, so that they're not low-level and they're not gut courses. People who take these classes should have an expectation that they're going to have college-level work to do. Oh, okay. The person in question is a full-time programmer now, so that's always good. It makes the transition a little bit easier. So it doesn't mean that you have a programming background. It actually makes this class any easier, except that if you don't have that program, it can be a little more difficult because you're not used to dealing with a programming environment or an integrated development environment where we actually produce code and produce apps. It's not a requisite that you be an expert with any of those things, but if you have a little prior knowledge, it doesn't hurt. Okay, anything else, or have we about covered everything? Okay, Debbie, so you're all set? Oh, Debbie's typing. Okay, great. Well, thank you all for coming. Class begins next Wednesday. Semester starts here on Tuesday. This class begins next Wednesday. Registration for this class is available through Tuesday, so anybody who wants to register between now and Tuesday, go to the link that I posted before, which is adultlearner.njit.edu. Make sure I have it, the entire thing here. adultlearner.njit.edu/programs/non-credit, one word, /iPhone_online.php. And if I got that wrong or it's too hard to follow, you can send me an email at Kellers, Kellers, @njit.edu, and I'll be happy to respond. Once again, thank you everyone for coming, and we hope we'll see you in class.